You're trespassing. You have no right to be here. Karen screamed, storming onto my farm like she owned it, waving HOA violation papers in my face. We're having you arrested. Two men in fake uniforms stood behind her, flashing badges to make it look official. Police cruisers with flashing red and blue lights lined the driveway, engines rumbling, neighbors peeking from behind fences. She thought her yelling, threats, and fake authority could force me off my own land, but she had no idea. I audit every HOA in America, and no bluff, no fake badge, no false accusation could intimidate me. Today, Karen's abuse of power was about to explode spectacularly in her face. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 40 years old, and most people see me as just another farmer living in Willow Creek, Montana. I spend my days tending crops, fixing fences, and checking on the livestock. It's honest work, grounded and predictable. But few know the other side of me. I audit HOAs across America. I know every loophole, every violation, every abuse of power. Most of the time, I keep it quiet, living simply and enjoying my farm. Today, though, peace was gone. Karen came charging across the dusty driveway, papers in hand, and an axe, pulled from her trunk, pointed directly at me. You're trespassing. You have no right to be here, she screamed, her blonde hair wild in the bright American sunlight. Behind her, two men in fake uniforms fumbled with badges and walkie-talkies, trying to act official, though it was obvious they had no idea what they were doing. Police cruisers with flashing red and blue lights lined the edge of the driveway, their engines rumbling. Neighbors peeked from behind fences, wide-eyed and whispering. I stepped aside just slightly, keeping my hands visible, and spoke slowly. Karen, put the axe down. This is my land. My farm. You have no authority here. She swung the axe toward the ground near my boots, stomping. Violator. This is American HOA law. You will be arrested. I kept my voice calm, even as adrenaline pumped through me. Arrested? By fake officers waving badges in the middle of a sunny Montana morning? Really, I gestured at the two men behind her, who shifted nervously, their confidence melting. Do you honestly think this works on someone who audits every HOA in America? Karen shrieked, stepping closer and pointing the axe at me. I am the HOA president. You will pay for every violation. I raised my hand slightly, tilted my head, and let my calm tone contrast her hysteria. Karen, all of your fines, all your fake threats, all of your intimidation, you're about to see how quickly they can collapse. She jabbed the axe toward the ground again, narrowly missing a post. The fake officers flinched, unsure whether to step forward or run. Birds scattered from the fences, cows stamped nervously, and the chickens clucked loudly in alarm. The sun glinted off the red and white barn behind her, casting long shadows across the golden fields of my farm. You can't, she sputtered, shaking, trying to regain control. Watch me, I said, letting my voice carry across the open land, loud enough to match her yelling. This is my property in America on my farm. You thought your little performance could intimidate me with fake badges, threats, and shouting. But you underestimated one thing. I audit every HOA in America. Every rule, every loophole, every abuse. You're about to learn what that really means. Karen's arms trembled, the axe shaking slightly in her grip. Her fake officers glanced at each other, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Neighbors had stepped closer now, whispers turning into murmurs. The tension stretched across the driveway, like a taut rope. Even with the blazing sun shining down, the air felt heavy with the clash of authority and defiance. I took a step forward, my voice firm but calm. Karen, this ends now. Stop threatening me. Step back, or your bluff will unravel in front of everyone here in America. Today, your abuse of power ends. For a brief moment, time seemed frozen, the red and white barn glowing behind her, the police cruisers idling with lights flashing, dust rising around her boots. And I knew she finally realized that she had crossed the wrong person. The shouting, the axe, the fake badges. It was all about to explode spectacularly in her face. The dust from Karen's boots was still swirling in the sunlight when I realized she wasn't going to back down. Her face was red, her blonde hair disheveled, and her grip on the axe trembling slightly. But her fury made her unpredictable. The fake officers shuffled nervously behind her, unsure whether to intervene or flee, their badges wobbling in their hands. The police cruiser's lights continued flashing, though real officers hadn't even arrived. You're lucky I haven't called the authorities yet. Karen yelled, waving the papers again like a weapon. This is America, and you will pay for every violation. I shook my head slowly, stepping further onto the driveway, hands visible. Karen, do you understand that threatening someone on their own property, waving weapons, and hiring fake officers is illegal? I let the word hang in the air, knowing the neighbors were watching. Cameras probably hidden in their phones. You think your little knowledge as an auditor scares me, she spat, swinging the axe dangerously close to the dirt. I'm the HOA. I have power over this land. I took a calm breath, tilted my head. Yes, you have power over some rules, some notices, but you don't control the law, Karen. And you certainly don't control me. Her face contorted further, and she jabbed the axe toward the ground again, missing by mere inches. I will make you pay. I could see her shaking now, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The fake officers flinched as she stepped closer to me. Step back, I said firmly. One more swing, and this becomes an assault case. One more lie, and your HOA credentials mean nothing in a court of law. She yelled again, the sound bouncing across my farm. I am your superior. You will be removed. I raised my voice, matching hers just enough to be heard clearly. Karen, I audit every HOA in America. I know every loophole, every violation, every abuse. Do you really want to find out how fast your threats can backfire? The neighbors were edging closer now, phones out, capturing every moment. Dust still swirled in the air, drifting across the green pastures where cows stared nervously, chickens flapped, and horses neighed in alarm. The sunlight glinted off the red and white barn house behind her, making the scene feel almost cinematic, as if the farm itself was holding its breath. Her chest heaved, and for a moment, I thought she might throw the axe again. But hesitation crept in. Maybe she realized the bluff she'd been running. The fake officers, the loud yelling, and the supposed authority of her HOA all meant nothing against someone who literally knew every HOA law across America. I leaned slightly on the fence post, letting her fury collide with my calm. Karen, I said, this isn't just your fight. Every word, every threat, every false accusation is being documented. Your abuse of power will be visible not just here, but across any HOA in America if you keep this up. She froze, the axe lowered slightly, and the fake officers exchanged uneasy glances. The flashing lights of the police cruisers reflected off the red and white barn, casting dramatic red and blue hues over the dust and livestock. It was a surreal mix of Americana, the serene farm, the animals, the sunlit pastures, clashing violently with human anger and false authority. And I knew, as she hesitated and yelped, that this confrontation wasn't over. It was only escalating. The air was thick with tension as Karen's fury boiled over, every scream echoing across my Montana farm. The axe in her hands trembled, but she made it clear she wasn't backing down. Behind her, the fake officers shifted nervously, their fake badges glinting in the sunlight as they tried to assert authority they didn't really have. The police cruisers flashing red and blue lights reflected off the red and white barn house, adding a surreal, almost cinematic glow to the chaos. Neighbors were gathering now, some stepping closer peek, some filming the spectacle on their phones. I could feel their eyes on me, but I refused to flinch. You can't just stand there and ignore me, Ethan. Karen yelled, swinging the axe dangerously near the ground, kicking up dust. I will make you pay for every single violation. I am the HOA president, and I have authority over this land. I shook my head, keeping my voice calm but firm. Karen, authority doesn't mean you can threaten someone with a weapon on their own property. You're breaking the law. Her face contorted with rage. Law? I control the rules. I control this HOA. You think you're smarter than me? She jabbed the axe toward the ground again, closer this time, making the fake officers flinch. You're not smarter, I said evenly. You're reckless. And abusing power in America comes with consequences. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Karen's lips trembled, and her voice rose to a scream. I'm going to have you arrested. One of her fake officers raised his hands, uncertain, while the other muttered something under his breath, clearly regretting being involved. The sunlight glinted off the red and white barn house, highlighting the surreal contrast of idyllic farm life and human chaos. Dust swirled across the green pastures as cows stamped nervously, chickens clucked and ran, and horses neighed in alarm. I stepped slightly to the side, hands raised just enough to show I meant no harm. Arrested? By fake officers waving badges on my own land? You've really lost touch with reality, Karen. She lunged forward, swinging the axe again, just missing my boots. You'll regret this, Ethan, she screamed. I audit every HOA in America. I said, my voice loud enough to carry across the fields. Every single violation, every abuse of power, you're about to learn what happens when someone like me takes notice. The neighbors were murmuring now, some whispering about the acts, the fake officers, the police lights, the farm animals scattered in panic. The scene was chaotic, but I felt a strange clarity. Every HOA in America might one day see the reports of her abuse. Every intimidation attempt, every false accusation. It would all come to light. Karen's hand shook as she jabbed the axe toward the ground one more time. Her fake officers were frozen, unsure what to do, their own fear matching her rage. You can't do this to me, she yelled. I can and I will, I said, taking another steady step forward. You are abusing your position. You're trespassing. You're threatening someone with a weapon. And the consequences in America are real. Her breathing was ragged now, rage giving way to panic. She looked at the police cruisers, the neighbors, the scattered animals, and I saw her confidence waver. For the first time, she hesitated, the axe lowering slightly. The sun blazed overhead, casting a warm glow over the red and white barn, the farmhouse, and the golden fields. Dust rose in eddies around Karen's boots. Animals reacted in alarm, and the fake officers looked helpless. I felt the shift in the air, the realization that her bluff was beginning to crumble. I kept my gaze steady, letting her uncertainty grow. Karen, every action you take from here on out will be documented. Every abuse, every lie, every threat, you'll be exposed across America. Her shoulders slumped slightly, the axe trembling in her grip. The shouting had not stopped entirely, but the edge was gone, and I knew, just as she was realizing it, that the tide of this confrontation had begun to turn, and that things were about to escalate even further. By late afternoon, the sun was casting golden light across the fields, highlighting the red and white barn house and the sprawling pastures. Karen, still fuming, wasn't backing down. She had moved her aggression to the far edge of the property near a wooded boundary, attempting to corner me into a negotiation I didn't intend to participate in. Ethan, you think you can just stand there and lecture me? Karen barked, her voice carrying across the farm. I called the HOA board. They're on their way to settle this once and for all. I raised an eyebrow, pretending mild concern. You've called them? That's cute. I've seen every violation, every loophole, every abuse of power in America. And let me tell you, your little HOA board can't scare me. Her face twisted with rage, and she pointed sharply at me, as if willing me to vanish. The fake officers, still trailing behind her, fumbled with phones and paperwork, clearly uncertain about what authority they had beyond standing there. You're going to regret this, Ethan. You'll be forced off this land. Karen shrieked, stomping on the dusty ground. Cows lifted their heads. Chickens scattered into the fields and the horses neighed, sensing the tension. The wind rustled through the trees at the property edge, adding a dramatic backdrop to her outburst. I stepped forward calmly, my boots crunching against the dirt. Karen, let me make this clear. You're trespassing. You're threatening me. And you're attempting to manipulate HOA authority in a way that's illegal. Step back. Right now. Her voice rose even higher, almost a scream. I am the law here. Everyone will see you removed. I took a deep breath, scanning the new surroundings. The wooded edge offered a different perspective than the main farm. Shadows lengthened. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, and the contrast made her shouting feel even more desperate. Karen, this is still my land. And today, everyone in America could see exactly how you abuse power if you keep this up. She faltered for a split second, probably realizing that her fake threats, the erratic behavior of her assistants, and her own yelling weren't going to intimidate me. She stomped, waved papers, and glared, but I noticed her confidence waver. The dramatic sunlight highlighted her disarray, her flustered officers, and the tension in the animals. I could sense a shift in the scene. The neighbors, still on the periphery, whispered and recorded, catching every moment of her aggression. Even the police cruisers, still idling with flashing lights, seemed almost ornamental now, a backdrop to the chaos she had orchestrated. You can't, she stammered, pointing her finger like it carried weight. I tilted my head slightly, keeping my voice calm but firm. I can and I will. You are exposing yourself. Karen, every threat, every yell, every attempt to manipulate the situation is being seen. And trust me, the consequences in America are real. Her face contorted with rage and confusion, the shouting reaching a fever pitch. She glanced toward the distant road, probably hoping her HOA board reinforcements would arrive before she lost control completely. But from where I stood, it was clear she was the one losing authority. As the sun dipped lower, the wooded edge of the property framed the scene dramatically. Dust drifted across the driveway, animals stirred nervously, and the tension hung thick in the golden light. Karen's fury had not ended, but her grasp on control was slipping, and I could feel it. This confrontation was far from over, but for the first time, I could see the cracks forming in her facade. The sun was lower now, casting long golden shadows across the fields. Karen had retreated slightly, muttering about contacting the HOA board and lawyers. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might actually back down. That fleeting hope, however, was dangerous. I had learned never to underestimate her. "I've called in reinforcements," she shouted from the far edge of the property, her finger trembling as she pointed. "You think you can just ignore the law? Everyone in this neighborhood will see you removed." I walked slowly toward the farmhouse office, the small brick building near the barn where I kept all my records and plans. "Karen, you might want to calm down before making this worse yourself," I said, letting my voice remain steady. "I'm willing to discuss things, but only if it's reasonable, right here on my property." Her face contorted in disbelief. "Discuss? With you? After all you've done? You'll pay for this." She waved papers wildly, the sun glinting off the edges of the HOA notices. The fake officers hovered behind her, unsure they should intervene or flee, while the cows and chickens scattered at the edge of the field. Even the horses neighed nervously. I stepped inside the office, motioning for her to follow, knowing that sometimes controlling the environment could shift the balance. "Fine," I said, opening the door. "Let's step inside. You can present your claims, and I'll show you why they don't hold up." She hesitated, her eyes narrowing, then stormed inside with her fake officers trailing. The office was small but orderly. Filing cabinets, maps of the property, a desk with my laptop, and piles of HOA documentation from across America. The sun streamed to the windows, illuminating the space in warm light, contrasting sharply with Karen's red-faced rage. "You can't just," she began, pointing furiously at the papers spread across the desk. "I can," I interrupted calmly, motioning to the stacks of documents. "You see, Karen, I've reviewed your HOA filings, your notices, your supposed violations. There are multiple loopholes, conflicts, and misapplications of authority here. And because of my audits, I can trace every one of them. You're not dealing with a normal farmer anymore." Her lips trembled as she glanced at the piles of paperwork. This can't be. You're bluffing." I shook my head. "No bluff. Every action you've taken, every intimidation attempt, every false accusation, it's all documented. And today in America, you're going to learn what it really means when you cross someone who audits every HOA in the country." Her anger faltered, replaced with panic for the briefest moment. She glanced at the door, as if hoping someone would intervene on her behalf. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out how to regain control. I leaned back in my chair, voice calm but commanding. "There's still a chance for you to walk away, Karen. Step back, drop the threats, and we can call this a learning experience. But if you continue, the consequences will be unavoidable." She froze, the office suddenly feeling smaller, more contained than the wide-open farm. Dust from the driveway outside drifted in through a slightly cracked window, mixing with the tension. The chickens clucked faintly in the distance, cows lowed, and the sunlight caught the corner of the red and white barn visible through the office window. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that her usual tactics wouldn't work. Her authority, her HOA status, her fake officers, even her yelling. None of it mattered inside this room. The first cracks were showing, and although she still radiated rage, the first seeds of doubt were planted. For a brief moment, it looked like the confrontation could end here peacefully. That was the false hope, the calm before the real storm. Little did she know, I had uncovered something far bigger, something hidden in the HOA filings that would turn everything upside down. And when that revelation came, Karen would be the one on the defensive, exposed for all her abuses of power. The office was quiet now, aside from the distant lowing of cows and the faint clucking of chickens outside. Karen's anger had given way to unease. I could see it in the way she shifted from foot to foot, her face pale and lips trembling. The papers on my desk weren't just any documents. They were the key to exposing every overreach, every false claim, every violation she had orchestrated across not just my farm, but potentially dozens of other properties in America. "Ethan, what are you planning?" Karen's voice cracked. Her fake officers leaned against the wall, glancing nervously at each other, clearly hoping this confrontation would end before things got worse. I tilted my head, scanning her for any hint of genuine composure. Planning? Karen, it's simple. You've been abusing your HOA authority, filing false notices, threatening property owners. I've compiled all your violations, all your missteps, and every loophole you've exploited. You're about to see the consequences. Her hands clenched, her fingers trembling as she gestured wildly at the papers. This can't be. You're bluffing. I have power. I am the president. I took a deep breath, letting the golden sunlight illuminate the piles of documents. Not just the president of one HOA, Karen. Every HOA in America that I've audited. I know their rules inside and out. And today, your abuses are on display. Every violation you've attempted here will be exposed. Her confidence faltered. She backed toward the window, the sun casting her shadow across the office floor, her red and white barn visible outside as a silent witness. You can't, they'll listen to me. I raised my hand, placing a document in front of her. This is real, Karen. This is every illegal notice, every false claim, every abuse of authority. The moment you try to threaten me on my property, you triggered a chain of evidence that can't be ignored. And now you're on the defensive. Her fake officers shuffled awkwardly, looking like they might run for the door. Outside, the farm animals stirred nervously, sensing the tension. Dust from the driveway drifted into the office through the open window. You're going to expose me? She stammered, her voice breaking. After everything I've done? I leaned back slightly, voice calm and firm. Yes, Karen. And not just here. Every property you've abused, every violation you filed incorrectly, will be scrutinized. The HOA board, the neighbors, the authorities, all of it will see what really happened. And today, America is watching. She sank into a chair, her rage finally giving way to despair. The office, one the battleground, now felt like a courtroom of justice. I could see the realization in her eyes. The bluff, the yelling, the fake officers, all worthless against someone who had a legal and auditing power to dismantle her authority. I stood up and gestured to the window. Look outside, Karen. This farm, these fields, the animals, none of it can be used to intimidate me. And soon, none of your HOA tricks will be able to intimidate anyone else. Her voice was barely a whisper now. What will happen to me? Consequences, I said simply, and learning. Perhaps it's time to understand that authority is responsibility, not fear. The sunlight bathed the red and white barn house in a dramatic glow, dust motes floating in the air. Outside, the neighbors, police cruisers, and the scattered animals had all witnessed part of the confrontation. Karen sat slumped, the first true crack in her facade. She realized her attempts to intimidate, manipulate, and abuse power had failed. The shift was complete. From this confined farmhouse office, surrounded by evidence of every HOA misstep, I had regained control. The balance of power was no longer hers. And in that moment, the story of abuse, threats, and false authority began to turn irreversibly in my favor. Karen was silent, the rage replaced with a dawning understanding that the game was over, at least this round. Outside, the sunlight glinted off the barn roof. The farm animals cautiously resumed their normal behavior. And for the first time, a sense of calm authority settled over the property. I had won not with violence, but with knowledge, preparation, and unwavering calm. By morning, the farm was quiet, almost serene, but the air still carried tension from the previous day. Karen had retreated inside the farmhouse, her rage replaced by a simmering panic. I had called in the actual local authorities to validate the legality of my actions and document her abuses. Police cruisers lined the driveway, flashing lights muted but present, signaling official oversight. The neighbors, alerted by yesterday's chaos, had gathered to witness the aftermath. I stepped onto porch, the red and white barn house gleaming in the morning sun. The animals, cows, chickens, horses, milled about peacefully, sensing the end of the immediate chaos. Karen emerged from the farmhouse, papers in hand, looking defeated and exposed. Her fake officers trailed behind her, silent, their earlier bravado gone. You, she stammered, her voice barely audible. You've done what? I shook my head calmly. Karen, today the truth is out. Your violations, your false claims, your threats, all of it is documented and verified. The HOA board, neighbors, and authorities all know what has happened. Your actions no longer carry power over me or over any of these properties. Her face paled as officers approached, reviewing the documents and shaking their heads at the audacity of her previous behavior. Karen tried to argue, pointing at me and yelling, but the words fell flat. Everyone could see the shift. The threat she once wielded had dissolved. I gestured toward the farmhouse office. These documents are evidence of abuse, Karen. And as of now, your authority as HOA president is under investigation. Any attempts to enforce illegal fines or intimidate property owners will be reversed. Neighbors whisper among themselves, a few clapping quietly in support. The small crowd had witnessed the unraveling of Karen's authority over the past 2 days. Her reputation, carefully cultivated through intimidation and power plays, was crumbling before their eyes. One of the police officers spoke firmly. Karen, we need you to come with us to review these claims. The legal process will determine the next steps. Her face contorted, a mix of disbelief, embarrassment, and fury. She looked around at the neighbors, realizing every lie, every threat, every act of manipulation had been exposed. Her fake officers muttered apologies, clearly regretting their involvement. I stood calmly on the porch, sunlight catching the edges of the red and white barnhouse, as Karen was escorted toward the police cruiser. The animals moved around peacefully, the morning calm restored. I could finally breathe, knowing the farm and my authority were secure. The neighbors approached cautiously, some offering handshakes and congratulations. We knew something was off with her, one of them said, nodding. Thank you for standing your ground, Ethan. I smiled, brushing dust off my boots. It wasn't just standing ground. It was showing the truth. Abusing power is one thing, but hiding behind intimidation will always fail when someone knows the rules. Karen was now inside the cruiser, humiliated publicly, the flashing lights highlighting the dramatic irony of her downfall. The sun reflected off the barn, illuminating the peaceful farm she had tried to dominate. Her shouting from yesterday now replaced with silence, the real officers maintaining order. As the morning progressed, I walked through the fields, observing the calm return of farm life. The cows grazed, chickens clucked, horses trotted freely. The red and white barnhouse stood proudly, a symbol of the property and authority that could not be undermined by threats or abuse. This was a conclusion. The HOA abuse had been exposed, Karen humiliated and under investigation, and the balance of power fully restored. For the first time in days, I could appreciate the serenity of my farm, knowing that knowledge, patience, and proper documentation had won over rage, intimidation, and false authority. Looking out over my farm in a red and white barn, I finally felt peace return. Karen's threats and HOA abuse are exposed, and justice has been served. This farm, my property, and my authority are safe once again. Standing here, watching the animals graze and neighbors whisper in support, I'm reminded that knowledge and calm resolve always win. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intense HOA drama.